All right, welcome everybody to the Bison Overtime show. I'm Grant Harbour, the sports editor of the Spectrum. This is my trusty writer, Ethan Eibach. How we doing, Ethan?
Good to be back.
Good to be back indeed. So on today's program, we're going to be discussing part 3 of a 3-part series that we started on the Spectrum website back in January. Part 1, we discussed the top 10 teams in NDSU history. The 2018 team was our number 1 team there. Last week, we discussed the top 10 games in NDSU history. If you haven't seen either of those, the games one is on BIN, and then the website is our top 10 teams one that we did a while back. So if you can't find either of those, that's where they are. And so today's topic, I want to say, is we're talking about the all-time NDSU football roster. This one I think took us the longest to put together. It was tough for us to put together, let's put it that way.
Yeah, we had different criteria for different positions, like quarterbacks. You know, if you started for 3 years or whatever, you'd have a better chance of being on here. And some of these guys are really hard to leave out because there's been so many good players, but yeah.
So we included Division I and Division II on this team. We didn't limit it to just Division I in that short span. So from 65 to now, there's no 1965 quarterbacks on this team because we probably couldn't find video of them either. Yeah. So the fact that you found video of a couple of these guys is a miracle in its own right. So Ethan made another video for us as a visual aid. So let's dive into the offense to start with. We'll start with the quarterbacks. So the all-time NDSU football team, we'll start with the signal callers. 2 signal callers. First one is Brock Jensen, 47-5 record, 14-1 playoff record, 3-time national champion, 2-time championship game MVP, 3-time all-conference. Nothing else you can say about Brock.
Yeah, he's the starter of the dynasty. He's the only FCS quarterback that I know of that's won 3 titles as a starter, and he beat 3 FBS teams. I mean, there's not much more to say. He's arguably the greatest we've had here at NDSU.
And most known probably for this play or anything else against Georgia Southern in 2012 that we talked about a ton last week. So Brock was the first quarterback on our list. I think he was an easy choice for us anyway, but Easton Stick is the other easy choice. FCS record in wins, tied with Mark Gronowski at 49 wins, 13-1 in the playoffs, 2-time national champion. He won 3 championships overall. He's the all-time passing touchdowns leader in Bison history, and he's 4-time all-conference. And he probably should have a Peyton next to his name as well. There's nothing that he didn't do at NDSU.
Yeah, he was basically just a 4-year starter, and he won. He lost 3 games. He beat Iowa. He's got all the notable wins you could have. He really was more of a runner when he started, like we see here, but he developed into probably the best passer in NDSU history.
Jordan Brown, never forget that stiff arm either that he threw him. 2 running backs on this list. Let's roll the running backs, fellas. John Crockett's the first running back. 2 running backs. He's the first one. Second all-time leading rusher, 2-time all-conference selection. And he's a single-season rushing record leader. He had to split carries with Samuel Jury early on. Once he got the main role, he never let it go. He was a great running back.
Yeah, we were kind of waiting for him to get unleashed there for a while, and then 2014, like you said, they finally stopped splitting carries, which NDSU always does. So. It
was him, and then King Frazier came in, but again, he hardly played. This was all him. But again, props to you for finding Lamar Gordon video against the University of Nebraska Omaha, who no longer plays college football. The all-time leading rusher, the all-time rush per attempt leader, and the 2001 Harlan Hill Award finalist. That's the equivalent of the Heisman for Division II. Again, not many people know about Lamar, but man, he was a great player as well.
Yeah, running backs at NDSU, it's kind of hard to pick and choose which ones were the best because they split carries so much, but you can see in the D2 era, they didn't do it as often, and he was electric.
Let's go to the fullbacks now. Let's go through the whole offense. Then we'll talk about it and recap it. The fullbacks, these are 2 easy choices. We had 2. Hunter Lipke's the obvious first one. We had 4-time all-conference, championship game MVP in 2021, 3-time All-American. If he could have stayed healthy, I think, into 22, who knows what he could have done.
He was probably the biggest difference maker on those teams, the teams that he started on. I mean, he could catch, he could make moves, he probably could have thrown it if they really needed him to. He was just that good.
That's true. I mean, there's nothing he didn't do. I mean, it's a shame they didn't really use him as much as we thought they would use him. He was a great blocker, but he wasn't winning. Just the sheer power he had when he ran the football was incredible. And then current Lions assistant from Bison OC, Tyler Roll, makes our list. All-conference member, All-American, 11 seasons as a Bison assistant. I think he's more known for this game, particularly against Minnesota, than anything else, but he was such an underrated player, those early teams that didn't go to the playoffs because they were in transition.
Yeah, he was just the ultimate Bison. He bleeds green and gold. I think he still does.
Again, the one-quarter statistics I thought was funny. 7 for 99 in the touchdown against a Big Ten team. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the receivers. Zach Vraw, again, this catch is more in particular. I know it's against Western Illinois, but that's freaking impressive. 3-time All-Conference, the all-time reception leader, receiving leader, the all-time everything for the Bison at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, if there was a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, you went to Zach Vraw, he was going to catch it.
And during that time, that 2015, he was the only guy who didn't know what it was like to not win a championship.
Yeah, there's very few guys.
Because I think he had 2 medical redshirt years. He broke both collarbones. So, unbelievable career that he had. He was there for all that time.
Few guys can say they have 5 rings on their hand.
Right, exactly. So Zach Vraw is our first receiver. Darius Shepard is the next one. 2-time All-Conference selection, the championship game MVP in 2018. 2nd in yards and receptions. Only had 1 receiving touchdown in 2017, but 2018 was his breakout season.
Yeah, he was like Urzendowski, who we'll see later on, but he broke out his freshman year, and he was just a starter all the way through, and he had sneaky good speed, as you can see on this play right here.
He was very underrated, but you knew in that 2018 team he was the catalyst on the outside. Then there's Urzendowski, 2-time all-conference selection, 5th all-time in yards, 6th in receptions, tied for 4th in receiving touchdowns. If a big play needed to be made, like this play here against South Dakota State, usually you went to 16.
Yeah, he was the deep ball threat for those 4 years. I mean, he started as a freshman. It's crazy to say, but yeah, he was Mr. Clutch.
He had over 100 yards, I think, in the championship game in 2014. Because back then, we didn't start very many true freshmen.
No.
He did, though. Christian Watson, the speedster, 3-time All-Conference, 2nd-round pick to the Packers in 22. 8th all-time receiving yards, 10th in receptions. If he could have stayed healthy as well, who knows where he would have been in Bison lore.
Yeah, he basically only started for 2 seasons if you don't count that spring season.
Yep.
He didn't play the whole playoff run in 21.
Just the amount of circus catches he made, like this one against Missouri State, that one's incredible. The pure speed guy, probably the fastest guy we've ever seen.
Yeah, he was a man.
Green and gold,
He was a man among boys on the FCS field.
No doubt. Go to the crew chiefs, the tight ends. We got 3 tight ends, because usually how many in a personnel group they have. Noah Gindorf, first of our 3 tight ends. 2-time All-Conference selection, 12 career touchdowns, and All-American. He's not a radio sideline reporter, so he's got his fair share of green and gold in him.
He was the guy that always brought the energy too on the sideline. You could tell up in the stands. He was the guy they went to for a leader.
Another guy who, if he could have stayed healthy, could have been great. Ben Ellefson played for the Vikings for a little while. 2-time conference selection, 16 touchdowns, made the East-West Shrine Bowl in 2020. Another just serviceable deep threat receiving tight end.
Yeah, it seemed like every time he touched the ball, it was when it was in the end zone. I think probably 50% of his catches were touchdowns.
Yeah. Another great tight end the Bison have had. Numerous plays that he made in his career. And then Joe Stuffel's our 3rd tight end. The reason he's really on this list, the all-time tight end leader in receptions for a tight end, all-conference selection, and 13 touchdowns in his career. He was the safety blanket for Cam Miller during Miller's time on campus.
Yeah, he kind of got thrown into the mix when Gindorf went down in 22, and it was full steam ahead. And like you said, he was the go-to guy when Cam needed to throw to somebody.
He's gonna be a tough guy to replace, for sure. 4 offensive tackles. You got to have 2 starters and 2 backups. Billy Turner being one of them. Again, you slow-mowed the blocks for us right there. 3-time All-American, 56 starts and 57 career games, and he was drafted by the Dolphins in 2014. We'll go through these quick. Cody Mount, 22. He made the Walter Payton finalist as a lineman. 3-time All-Conference selection, 39 consecutive starts, and that hair still flowing. There's Mount. Now Dylan Radens. Kind of played everywhere, but primarily a tackle, 2-time All-Conference selection, drafted by the Titans in 2021 Senior Bowl invitee. He was the guy on those Trey Lance lines.
Yeah, he was kind of underrated too when he was here. Not a lot of people talked about him.
That's true. Cordell Volson now plays guard for the Bengals, 3-time All-Conference selection, East-West Shrine Bowl invitee in 2022, and a 3-time All-American. That's pretty impressive.
Another guy that just bleeds green and gold. He would die for a ring with the Bison.
No doubt. Again, there are a lot of, we'll get to the honorable mentions on them in a minute. Offensive guards, again, 4 guards. Nash Jensen cracks our list, the All-Conference selection once, an All-American, and 55 career starts, played with the Panthers for a little while in the NFL. Another serviceable guard, is dominant player. Colin Connor, played for about 4 years, 51 career games and a 3-year starter. Just run-of-the-mill Bison offensive guard.
Yeah, right in the prime of the offensive line here at NDSU.
Zach Johnson, don't get confused, there's another one coming. 3-time All-Conference selection, 2017 East-West Shrine Bowl invitee, and an All-American in his own right. Another dominant offensive guard.
Yeah, if you're above the age of like 12, check out his Twitter too. He's still a big Bison fan.
Don't check your sets. That's correct. And there are 2 Zach Johnsons. This one was a 3-time All-Conference selection, 2-time All-American, and 46 career starts. He broke Adam Cofield free on that 71-yard touchdown run.
Played professional football. I don't know if he still does, but I know he played a little bit in the NFL and a little bit in the XFL or whatever.
2 centers, and again, you found my favorite tape. I give you a ton of credit for this. 3-time national champ. He's in the Bison Hall of Fame. 2011 inductee into the College Football Hall of Fame as well. Just a stud of a center in the late 80s.
Yeah, the centers had to be really athletic back then, and that's what he was.
When you ran the veer. And then Joe Lund, 2-time national champ, 29 career starts. Won the Remington Award in 2012. That goes to the best center in the FCS. Dominant interior offensive presence. So that'll be the offense. Let's pause it here, guys. So the all-time offense, we'll recap it. Jensen, Stick, Crockett, Gordon, Lipke, Roll, Watson, Vra, Shepard, Urzendowski, Ellefson, Gindorf, Stuffle. Offensive line, Mauk, Turner, Johnson, Jensen, Favor, Lund, Johnson, Connor, Volson, and Radens. It's a long list, but again, that's a great list that I think we put for the offense. I mean, there are a lot of names we could leave out that we left out that we'll talk about in a second, but I think we did a pretty good job on the offense.
Yeah, I think we had good criteria. I mean, like I said, if you're a 3-year starter and you put up record-setting numbers, you're going to be on this list. Guys that, I mean, quarterbacks, you had to obviously be a champion. Some D2 quarterbacks were really hard to leave out, but yeah.
So the honorable mentions we had, again, there are some obvious selections that we left out. Trey Lance, if he was here longer, I think he would have been on this list. But he's only here for parts of 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Only had 1 year starting. If he would have been here longer, I think like 2020, if that season happens, he's probably on this list.
Yeah, I mean, it was never going to happen, but if he played here for 4 years, he would have broken every record.
No
Probably
question.
would have broken the rushing record too. He's just that talented, but it's just too hard to put him on a list when he played basically 1 year.
Cam Miller is an honorable mention. I love Cam, the guy that nobody really wanted for a while, and he broke out and became basically a 4-year starter. Just didn't do enough, in our opinion, to make this list again. He led it. The one thing going into this season that he didn't have was he didn't lead a team to a national championship.
Yeah.
In 21, that was kind of Quincy Patterson's team and his team. They kind of got half a championship. That was his team this past year.
Yeah, and we kind of got to cut him some slack because, the 2022 and 23 teams weren't the greatest. I think if he's on the 2010s Bison, he probably has 3 rings on his hand right now. But, yeah, you're right. This past season he not carried the offense, but he was a massive part of it when in 21 he was just kind of a game manager.
The other real glaring omission is Carson. Carson, again, 2nd overall pick in the draft. He did everything you asked him to, again, but the main knock on him is 2015, he's not there the back half of the season to the championship game because he broke his wrist. Again, if he's playing an additional year, he plays those 2 full years, he probably wins the Peyton in 15.
Yeah.
He was having an unbelievable start to that season. He probably wins the Peyton. So that's why we left him off. It's hard to leave him off, but you just had to because he didn't have the statistics to match Brock or Stick.
Yeah, his biggest fault is that he had to follow up Brock Jensen, and he only got 2 years to do it. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt. But, if he plays 4 years, he's going to probably win 4 rings. He just was that good, and arguably the most talented arm strength we've had as a quarterback here. But, yeah. And
then the 2 Harlan Hill Division II winners, Jeff Bentram, Chris Simdorn, both of them awesome veer quarterbacks. I don't know if they match the 2010s era of quarterbacking, but still, both of them were physical, tough as nails, especially running that veer offense. You had to be tough. Both of them were. Both won championships. I didn't think they did enough, in my personal opinion, to put them above Brock or Easton.
Yeah, it's so hard for us, especially to judge, because we're young.
Yeah, because we weren't even close to being conceived back in 1988. Yeah.
But when I talk to people, like my dad in particular, he said Bentram and Simdorn were just unbelievable for the D2 level, and yeah, apparently Bentram looked like a linebacker when he would walk around campus. That's what I've heard.
Rocky Hager called him like a fullback.
Yeah.
He could describe Simdorn as a tailback. So that's how he described both of those guys. So honorable mentions at running back, again, Kyle Steffes, not many of you saw him play. He was really productive in his time in the backfield. Samuel Jury, running back coach here now, the guy before Crockett. He split carries with Crockett. I think he has to be at least given an honorable mention. DJ McNorton as an honorable mention. He's close for me. I thought, because again, when I first started watching Bison football, he was the back. He was the guy. Was number 8 in gold. He was outstanding, I think, in his time on campus.
Yeah. If you ask me, the guys we put up are in their own tier.
Yeah.
DJ McNorton is almost cracking that, and then the rest of these guys were like starters for any other team in the country, but unfortunately they had to split carries.
Bruce Anderson is the same way. I think Bruce, again, the Bruce chance, everybody knew.
Yeah.
Again, the kickoff returns as a redshirt freshman against Northern Iowa and Montana. He was beloved by NDSU fans.
Yeah, he was. I mean, if you needed, I mean, remember that Sam Houston game in the semis? He had.
They couldn't touch him.
Yeah, he had like 5 touchdowns. I think he had probably.
It was close to 200 yards.
Yeah, all-purpose yards. He was just electric. And he could truck people too. He was physical.
Yeah, there are just so many great backs that there's like the Lance Dunns and there's the Chase Morlocks who got more out of his ability than he even thought he could get out of himself. But again, there are just so many backs that it's so hard to pick and choose which ones to go with. The fullbacks, I didn't have the honorable mentions listed because these are the two.
Yeah.
Hunter and Tyler Roll are the only two guys I could even consider playing for the fullback position.
Yeah, the only other one I could really think of is Andrew Bonnet, but it's not a guy that really was a huge difference maker like Tyler Roll and Hunter Lipke were, but yeah.
But he played everywhere, though.
Yeah,
Bonnet played he would play fullback, tailback. He could line up at tailback. He played tight end. He'd line up at H in the slot. He kind of did everything.
Yeah.
So he wasn't just a fullback, I think, in my opinion. The only 2 honorable mentions I had at wide receiver, Ryan Smith, and again, Bryce Lance has not played long enough, but he had probably the greatest single season in FCS history as a wide receiver. But we'll start with Ryan Smith. I think Smith, I don't know, it's just he wasn't as good as the 4 above him, but that punt returner slot guy, really productive, though.
Yeah, he was a fan favorite because, I mean, he was, 5'8"?
He's from Wahpeton, so he's around the area.
Yeah, he was their Julian Edelman, basically.
Yeah.
He was the slot guy, but yeah, he was a good player.
And then Bryce Lance, the greatest single receiving season in FCS history. He had, again, it's only 1 year. That's why I can't put him up there. It's 1 year. It's one great year, but it's just 1 year.
I think if he coming back this year, if he replicates that again, then I think we're having a new conversation next year. But as of now, I mean, just 1 year doesn't really cut it.
Yeah, a lot of tight ends that we could list again. None of them were I wouldn't say they stood out, but they're just names that we all remember. Again, Matt Veldman he was that 6'7" tight end, hard to miss. The guy from Becker, Minnesota. Kevin Vodlin, pretty productive tight end. We saw him catch touchdown against Kansas State. Andrew Bonnet, again, we've talked about him. Jeff Ilias and Luke Albers were kind of the same player. They're great blockers, great receivers. They kind of the all-around kind of tight end.
Yeah, the guys that were kind of more of the tight end 2s behind. I mean, I guess it's hard to say that because I look at this list and these are all guys from like 2019 through 2024.
Yeah.
So I feel like they kind of expanded the pass game a little more with the tight ends. But yeah, these guys are all really good players. They just aren't all-timers, I'd say.
And then the 2 tackles that we thought about as honorable mention were this past year's tackles, Gray Zabel and Mason Miller. Zabel will probably be a mid to late first round guy. He's been projecting from 16th down to the late first round where Philadelphia is. Please don't let him go to Philadelphia.
No.
That would hurt.
Please no.
And then Mason Miller, he's not projected to get drafted, but I'm sure he'll get a look.
Yeah.
I mean, Kubis got a look. He ended up starting for the Giants this past year, so who knows. But Zabel and Miller, to me, were the obvious omissions. I couldn't think of anybody else to put there, but those 2 definitely deserve at least an honorable mention.
Yeah, Zabel was. I remember in 2022 when Mason Miller actually went down, and Matt Entz said, "Well, we have the best 5th lineman in the country in Gray Zabel," and that turned out to be right. And it's hard to put these guys off the list because you look at how much time Cam had to throw this year. I mean, the protection was unbelievable, but yeah, that just shows how good the tackles have been here.
I guess just how good the depth has been.
Yeah.
I think as well for both these sides. I didn't have any other honorable mentions for the guard or center spots. I thought we nailed those pretty. I think especially the centers. Favor alone is one of the more underrated players they've ever had because he was elected to the College Football Hall of Fame in 2011. I don't think many people remembered that he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. And then Lund, all I remember about Lund, he didn't play long, but when he did, he 2012 Remington Award. That's hard to get at any level, but especially at the FCS. I mean, good offensive linemen coming out of the FCS nowadays. So I don't think because the offensive line's just been so good, it doesn't matter who you put there.
Yeah.
At some point, like Jake Rock and Hunter Pontius took snaps, and they look like the best linemen and guard in the country.
Yeah, I don't think people realize like when Mike Favor played when they had the Veer offense. If you played offensive line, you had to be athletic. You didn't have to be strong. I mean, you did, but you didn't have to be just a big and strong guy. You had to be able to move. and he certainly did. And then Joe Lund, I mean, that's how the Bison dynasty started, was the offensive line, and he was a part of it.
Let's go to the defense now, fellas, in the back. So let's focus on the defensive side of the ball now. So we'll start on up front of the defensive line. Defensive tackles, we'll start it with Levon Perry, just unbelievable presence in the middle, 3-time All-Conference and a 3-time national champion. He got hurt at the end of the 2012 season, or his stats would have been even better. Just an unbelievable player. I think one of my favorite plays is the Zach Zenner tackle coming up.
Yeah.
When we get to that. Yeah, right here. Call him around the head, Zach Zenner. Unbelievable player he was in the middle.
Yeah, just clogging up the middle of the field. That was their job as a D tackle, and he could rush the passer too, as we'll see here.
I don't remember the Peter Athens sack. I don't remember that one. Yeah. It was 2013. So Eli Mostert, recently graduated player. Just, you couldn't block that dude inside. 4-time All-Conference selection, 33 TFLs, 19.5 sacks. That's all you could say about him. He's just an unbelievable player up there.
Yeah. At a time where the D tackles, the D line in general, the past few seasons has been a little down. He never was down. He's been an All-American multiple times. He's just a heck of a player.
He was Mr. Consistency in the middle of the defensive line. Brian Schatz, best known for this play against Northern Iowa in the 2015 quarters, sacking Aaron Bailey in the end zone. 21 career TFLs, 10 sacks, and that safety. Another just game wrecker in the middle of the defense.
Yeah, he clogged up the middle in the runs. Even though mostly what we're showing here is sacks, he was mostly known for clogging up the middle of the field.
Then Nate Tangway, one of the biggest personalities the D-line has ever seen. 3-time All-Conference selection. He got hurt in 2016, or it could have been 4 times. 18 TFL, 7 sacks. Just disruptive in the middle again. The shoot-top interception, we'll show that again right here. I still don't think he knows how he caught that ball, but again, just an unreal player in the middle there.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite for sure.
So 4 D tackles, you got 4 defensive ends. Kyle Emanuel, not enough to say about. There's not enough you can say about Kyle. The 2014 Buck Buchanan Award winner, East-West Shrine Game draft pick, drafted by the Chargers, 3-time All-Conference selection, 58.5 TFLs, 35.5 sacks, and I get a pleasure to work with the guy on Saturdays. He's the color analyst for Bison Football games now on WDAY. Unbelievable on the edge.
I think if he was playing in today's age, he'd probably be playing for Nebraska or Wisconsin.
He was from Nebraska, so that would help.
He was just a disruptive player, one of the best we've ever had here at NDSU.
This is a play that Kyle gets a lot of flack for. Dom Izzo makes fun of him for it. I always say if Marcus Williams gets out of the way, he probably scores, but again, it gets down to the 5. What we do is score. But he was all-around player. Greg Menard, one of the more forgotten defensive ends. After that play, you would think not. 3-time All-Conference, 2-time All-American. Was hurt in 2017, so he didn't play that year with a torn ACL. 46 career TFLs and 33.5 sacks. When he was on the field, you had to know where 96 was at all times.
And he started as a freshman, too. He was just super disruptive.
Derek Tuska, the South Dakota native, 2 key sacks in the 19-marker game. East-West Shrine Bowl appearance, 2-time conference selection, 42 career TFLs and 29.5 sacks. One of the few defectees from South Dakota who made a big presence in Fargo.
Yeah, it always feels good to steal a couple players from the Jackrabbits, I'll say that.
Amen. Phil Hansen, one of the best NFL Bison there ever was. 48 career TFLs, 35 sacks, 11 seasons with the Buffalo Bills. He's the radio color analyst on Bison 1660. Before this whole run, this was the guy you thought about when it came to Bison football.
Yeah, probably the most notable player in Division II Bison history. He's just Bison through and through.
Now the linebackers, Jabril Cox finished his career at LSU, but he was a monster when he was here. 3-time All-Conference selection, 3-time All-American, the Defensive Player of the Year in the Valley in 2018, the Freshman of the Year and the Newcomer of the Year in his freshman year in 2017. Just a freak of an athlete, a high school quarterback playing linebacker.
Yeah, I remember Chris Kleiman saying after the 17 season, he's a senior that's a freshman. Like, he plays like a senior. He was just an absolute freak. It's no surprise he was at LSU and that he got to the NFL. Yeah.
Played with the Cowboys for a little while. Was in training camp with the Vikings this past year.
Yep.
Great talent he was in that linebacker room at NDSU. Then Nick DeLuca, 2-time All-Conference selection. He had some wheels, believe it or not, against Eastern Washington here. He didn't have a great sense of ball security, but his 2018 Senior Bowl invitee, 329 career tackles, 26 TFLs, was also hurt in 2016 again. A lot of hurt guys in 2016, but again, he was one of the more talented linebackers that they've ever had.
Yeah, middle linebacker is a staple here at NDSU, and he could not only could he make huge plays in the run game. He made a lot of interceptions, and he forces a fumble here, as you can see.
He knew where the ball was at all times at that linebacker position, especially against that Jacksonville State team that year. Then Grant Olson, 326 career tackles, made 29 in one game against Wofford in the 2012 playoffs, 25 career TFLs. The current defensive coordinator, he played on a torn ACL in the 2013 championship game. This guy was born to be a Bison.
Yeah, and I don't see him leaving here anytime soon either. He's just Bison through and through.
Carlton Littlejohn, another current NDSU assistant coach, best known for this block field goal in 2012. All conference selection once, 345 career tackles, 27.5 TFLs. Just unbelievable player as well.
Yeah, he could rush the passer too. People forget he did both. He could, like you see here, he rushed the pass. Or no, this is a different play.
Yeah, did they call targeting on that play?
Yeah, they did.
Did he get thrown out for that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember, yeah. Jackson Hankey, the do-it-all middle linebacker, the workman-like approach, one-time all-conference selection, 324 career tackles, 15 TFLs, guy who knew where the ball was at all times.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite Bison players of all time just because of how tough he was. Next place, you'll see here, I think he popped his shoulder a little bit.
He did. He did.
And he still stayed in the game. He was just a tough guy.
Didn't redshirt either. He was only here for 4 seasons. He wanted to get his degree, play football, and then go, but he did a great job when he was here. Travis Beck, best known for this play against Sam Houston in his sophomore season. He was the championship game of this game for this play. 308 career tackles, 18 TFLs. I think he tore his Achilles in 2014, so he didn't finish his senior season. You like this play once, we'll show it to you twice, by the way, because you'll see another angle of it right here. And again, another great athletic linebacker.
Yeah, he was just a playmaker all through and through. I mean, he probably could have played defensive back. He had that good of ball skills, but
it's a shame he could not run Brian Bell, but other than that, it's okay.
Yeah.
Down at the line. So those are your linebackers, the 4 linebackers, and then we transition to the back half of the defense. Not a lot of corners, but there's always Mr. Reliable Marcus Williams from Minneapolis. So I bet this one felt pretty good, scoring 2 touchdowns against Minnesota. You'll see the other one later. 4-time all-conference selection, the all-time interceptions leader, 7 career pick sixes. I don't know what he didn't do when he was here. He was insane.
Yeah, he probably could cover the entire field. I mean, he was just that quick. Another guy that if he was playing in today's college football, he'd probably be playing Power 5 football just because how it is now. But he's probably a top 3 player to ever play here at NDSU.
Rarely ever got beat deep. I mean, it's just, you were on, there was Revis Island, there was also Williams Island here at NDSU during that time. And you know how good the secondary was with NDSU? This guy was playing with Marcus Williams. C.J. Smith won 5 national championships in his career, all-conference selection. And then Brady Gustafson, I don't think, likes C.J. Smith. 8 career interceptions. I think played with the Eagles in training camp a year when he was done playing. Just another incredible player on the outside.
Yeah, he always knew where the ball was. He played when he was really young. So he was just playmaker all around.
This is probably the toughest position group for us to pick was the quarterback position. There were a couple lockdown selections like Marcus and CJ. Another CJ play here against Northern Iowa. Always knew where the ball was. Great ball skills. Not a lot he couldn't do on the field either.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Allison, I think, was an interesting selection for us, so we're going to go with it anyway. 2-time all-conference selection, 8 picks, 55 career starts. One of our underrated guys, I think, on the back end, but he was really productive as well in his time.
Yeah, corner is not typically a position NDSU is really known for.
Yeah.
But the guys that are on this list certainly stood out a little bit. Jalen Allison kind of struggled his freshman year, even though this is where that play is from. But as he progressed, he was one of the better ones we've had.
One of the more productive ones, for sure.
Yeah.
Then the 4th corner, Marquise Bridges, we're going to go with for our 4th selection. All-conference selection once, 5 career interceptions. Recruited as a receiver. That's him playing, I think it was his true front. No, one of his first seasons at NDSU. 5 career picks. His first career start was that title game. He had 2 interceptions against Sam Houston in the semifinals that year. Great ball skills as well. Again, he played receiver. He should have good ball skills. He was a great player.
Yeah, he kind of saved the Bison in that JMU game because if him and Josh Hayes don't play well, I mean, they're going to lose.
Riley Stapleton's still running, I think, if they're not there. 2 free safeties, Christian Dudzik, 61 career starts, the most before COVID in the portal. 2-time conference selection, 13 interceptions, and the current video editor. So had some wheels back in his day against Kansas State as a punt returner. He was a really, really productive safety.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the most underrated players to ever play here, just because. And he didn't miss a single game other than his like redshirt year when you couldn't play back then.
Right.
And he had ball skills. He could tackle well. He returned punts. I mean, did everything.
Trey Dempsey, one of the more athletic safeties they've ever had. 2-time all-conference selection, 16 career interceptions, and 44 career starts. Another guy who missed that 2016 semifinal against James Madison, just an unreal freak of a safety.
Yeah, I mean, he always knew where the ball was. We've said that 1,000 times in this video, but he truly did. That interception there, he did. And then this game in particular, I know they lost, but he had an interception earlier in the game.
Then the play he's most known for is probably this one against Eastern Washington, the one-handed interception in overtime that would set up the Lance Dunn touchdown.
He's just a clutch player.
Very clutch player, I think, in his time. Then on the strong safety side, again, tough decisions to make, but Robbie Grimsley, I think, was an easy one for us. 4-time all-conference selection, 17 picks and 54 starts. Had a sack against Iowa that halted their drive that led to the game-winning field goal. Very productive player. Yeah,
and he got thrown into the mix his freshman year when Dudzik and Hegel were graduated, and I mean, he just took off with it. He struggled a little bit at the beginning, but by the end, I mean, he was one of the best to ever play here.
Without a doubt. And then Colton Hegel is our other strong safety, 3-time all-conference selection, only 3 picks, a Buck Buchanan finalist with Emmanuel back in 2014. He had some injuries throughout his career, but when he was on the field, you wanted to know where 20 was at all times.
Yeah, funny story, when we were watching Northern Iowa in 2015, he was up in the stands next to us, and he said, we told him he should get down there. He said, I probably can't walk if I play another game.
Because I think he tore his ACL against Colorado State, and then he had like some wrist injuries his senior season. So dealt with some issues throughout his career, but he definitely earned his spot on this list. And the special teamers can't, because punters and kickers are people too. Adam Keller, 2-time all-conference selection, 80% field goal percentage, made 3 field goals in the 2014 championship game. If it was inside 40, the four-toed kicker was going to put one through.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can really ask for in college football. If you're asking for more than 40, 45 yards, especially at the FCS level, you're kind of begging, but this is...
Brent Vegan would know all too well.
Oh, yeah.
And then the weapon known as Ben LeCompte gets our punter nod. The punter of the year in 2014 that led to a free agent spot with the Bears. He didn't make the team that year, but he was definitely in camp. 2-time All-American, 44.6 yards per punt. One of the associate ADs at South Dakota. Really, Ben? Just kidding. He was a weapon as the punter.
Yeah, probably the only guy that I can think of that's won the player of the game.
For ESPN, he was their player of the game. That's right. And Nisha and Ahmad Brooks, they named him their player of the game. Can't leave out the kick return of the punt returner. Marcus Williams returns 2 career kickoff return touchdowns. His speed, I think, is what I'll never forget.
Yeah, just all around, just a crazy athlete. I mean, it's hard not to let him return kicks when he's that good, and you can see there he's outrunning everybody.
I think they were behind actually in this game. It was 10-0, so he cuts into that. They won that one decisively. And that jump started them in that game. Then the punt returner, Jaden Price, no doubt he was going to be our selection here. The all-time punt return leader, 5 career punt return touchdowns, 910 punt return yards. If the guy got the ball in the open field, you weren't going to touch him.
Yeah, and I think that video right there was the first time he ever returned a punt, because they didn't know because he didn't do it in high school, they said. But,
sounds right, yeah.
The one against South Dakota that I'll show in a second, this is where he kind of just took the game by charge. I mean, it was 14-3, and all of a sudden 21-3.
No, that's because the line judge or the back judge sets a great screen here.
Yeah.
That's why he scored.
Yeah, he's underrated corner too. I mean, he wasn't great, but he could every once in a while he'd make a big play.
No, but he was here forever. It seemed like that's what made it the difference.
Yep.
And also, we couldn't leave. Matt Entz is not one of the coaches. We had a head coach and then an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. The head coach is the architect, Craig Bull. Yeah, again, I don't have his stats in front of me, but again, the things he did to get the program off the ground. Defensive coordinator Chris Kleiman, he was Bull's defensive coordinator. No question, he had to be the defensive coordinator on this team. Then the offensive coordinator, no surprise here, is Tim Polasek. That's a great way to end the video with him doing that. So there's your defense and your coaches on our all-time list. I don't think there is a lot of honorable mentions outside of the safety position. Dawson Weber, Michael Tutsi. Those are the only 2 that I could think of to leave as an honorable mention.
It seems like we always have a good safety duo here, and you talk about Weber and Tutsi. Nobody was going to pass on those guys. unless you're Incarnate Word, then you will for one half. But
Yep.
then, like Dudzik and Hegel, Dempsey, Grimsley, it's always a great safety duo here, and it was super hard to leave them off the list.
The only guys I could think about, if they had played longer, they probably could have been on this list. Marquise Siegel, who left for Kansas State, and then Dom Jones, if he was here a little longer. I don't know where he went after he transferred.
Colorado State.
Went to Colorado State? Okay. But if those two had stuck around, I think those two would be on this list for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Marquis Siegel's going to be probably a day 2 or 3 pick, and he's, I mean, we saw his athleticism in the 2 years he was here. I think if he's here in 22 through the playoff run, maybe things go a little differently with injuries, but he was a good player.
Again, and then the coaches, I don't know if there's any I think this may have taken the shortest amount of time.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, if there's going to be a head coach, it's got to be Craig. I don't think there's any discussions of who would be that head coach. Again, he was here for 10 years, won numerous Eddie Robinson awards, 3 national championships. He got this program off the ground.
Yeah,
he deserves our head coaching nod.
It's not much to say. He started this whole thing, and so there's stuff that they do. I've heard at practice that came from him that still goes on today, and it probably will go on for the next 20 years. He's just a great coach, and his footprint's all around college football too. He recruited Josh Allen. Fun fact.
I remember because Craig came back when he was inducted in the NDSU Hall of Fame. He came back for the Towson game, and I remember they were going to interview him on WDAY in the morning. So I remember he was like 20 minutes late, I swear to God. But he comes rolling down the ramp, in the end zone. He comes rolling down there with aviation shades and a coffee, just looking like the man. I'm like, that's the coach I remember that roamed the sidelines around here. Defensive coordinator Chris Kleiman, his defenses were outstanding during his time here. Again, he could have left before 2013, but he decided to stick around. Team went undefeated. He got the job, 4 titles. Unbelievable job he did.
Yeah, not just the defenses that he ran, but the defenses when he was a head coach and he was still a part of the defense.
Yep.
I mean, there were teams that you were never going to rush for over 100 yards on those teams. You had to pass. He's just a great coach.
Again, when you had guys like Levon Perry and Schatz in the middle of that defense, you weren't going to get big games on them on the ground. And then Tim Polasek as the OC, the offenses that he ran were the most, I wouldn't say they were the highest scoring or the flashiest, but again, they ran more than 15 plays at a time. They were going to get it. They just their drives were so methodical. They're so well executed. They made it look easy playing offense.
Him being an offensive line guy, I think that's what helped with the run game, coordinating that and being efficient in the pass game. I think that helped with the 2024 team too this past year. But yeah, you coached at Iowa, coached at Northern Illinois, coached at Wyoming, obviously. But yeah.
So that is the all-time North Dakota State football team from the quarterback all the way down to the coaches. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, it's like we said, it was hard to leave some of these guys off, like Miller and Tutsi, Lance, but I think we did a good job with the criteria.
So that'll wrap it up. For now, I'm Bison Overtime. Thanks for watching, everybody. For our outstanding guys in the back, for my outstanding color guy, appreciate you sticking around for another episode. Ethan Eibach, I'm Grant Hubbard. So long, everybody. Thanks for watching, and go Bison.